My name is Doug Parker, host of the Cruise Radio Podcast, and today we're going to talk about getting to Trunk Bay from St. Thomas. If you like this video and you'd like to see more content, feel free to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how to get from the cruise terminal in St. Thomas over to St. John and then back. So if your cruise ship docks in St. Thomas and you want to experience something a little different that doesn't require you purchasing a ship's excursion, you may want to consider visiting Trunk Bay on the nearby island of St. John. I first visited this place in 2014, and now every time I go back to St. Thomas, except once because it was closed for the hurricane, I've been going back to St. John. Often cruisers get nervous about doing anything that takes them too far away from the ship, and I mean rightfully so. It's important to know how much time you're actually going to have in port, but assuming time allows, getting to St. John is pretty easy and definitely worth the trip. So there are two different cruise piers in St. Thomas, and whether you wind up at Crown Bay or Havensight in Charlotte Amalie, that will depend on what cruise line you sail. The good news is you can easily access Trunk Bay or St. John from both of these docks. And to give you a little added peace of mind, when you're at the Red Hook Ferry Terminal, you could actually see St. John across the harbor, so it's not that far away, like 2 or 3 miles. So what you'll do is you'll grab a taxi at the cruise terminal. So after disembarking, walk outside the cruise terminal and you'll see signage telling you exactly where to catch the taxi. Now, if by chance you have difficulty finding one, just ask one of the locals. They'll point you in the right direction. The ride to the Red Hook Ferry Terminal is approximately $10 per person each way, and it takes about 20 minutes to get to the ferry terminal. It's also important to note that the cabs in St. Thomas only take cash. And remember, that's not only getting to the ferry terminal, but returning from the ferry terminal. There's also an ATM machine at the ferry terminal as well if you're short on cash. Now, what you'll do once you get to the ferry terminal, you're in the car for 20 minutes, you get out and you buy a ferry ticket. Now, that's going to be at the Red Hook Ferry Terminal. You'll be able to purchase the ticket for $8.15 each way, but you'll want to go ahead and buy a round-trip ticket. That's $16.30 per person. The ferry leaves on the hour, every hour, from Red Hook, St. Thomas, and it takes you over to Cruise Bay in St. John. Again, you can literally see it right across the harbor. The ferry terminal itself does take credit cards, but they have to rely on internet connections, and sometimes it can be spotty on the island, so I just always bring cash over there. The actual ferry ride itself from Red Hook to St. John is 20 minutes. So you're going to dock at the cruise bay within 20 minutes or so. Once you get there, you're going to find a bunch of open-air taxis. Now, these taxis are going to be on the left side of the ferry terminal. The distance between Cruise Bay and Trunk Bay, which is where we're heading, is just over 3 miles, but because of how hilly the island is, it's going to be about a 10 to 15 minute drive each way from the ferry terminal to Trunk Bay, the actual beach itself. The open air taxi ride is $6 each way, and that is from Cruise Bay, where you are in St. John, over to Trunk Bay. On the ride to Trunk Bay, the driver is going to stop at Lookout Point, and that's a perfect observation point overlooking Trunk Bay, so make sure you get out of the Jeep, take a picture, and just take it all in because it's one of those picture-perfect moments that you see on a postcard. In less than 5 minutes from this observation point, you'll be at Trunk Bay. Now, they used to charge $4 per adult, with kids being free at Trunk Bay. Now, after the 2017 hurricane season, a lot of the facilities were shut down, badly damaged or destroyed. They started waiving the fees to get in. The last time I was there was at the end of January 2019, and it was still free to get in. Since then, facilities have slowly started to reopen, so don't be surprised if they do charge you $4 per adult again and kids being free. There's no telling when they'll start charging again, but as of right now, it is still free. So you may be wondering, I'm at Trunk Bay, I took my pictures, and now what is there to do? Well, the obvious answer is just to relax. There's a mile-long shoreline there, and there's a snorkel trail just off the coast, which features, I say just off the coast, like literally 100 feet from the shoreline, and there's a lot of coral in there, different types of tropical fish. If you plan on doing the snorkel trail, give yourself plenty of time and do it earlier in the day. The water just seems to be a lot clearer in the morning time. Plus, the later on in the day it gets, the more people from the cruise ship start coming and everyone starts getting kind of cramped on top of each other. So get there early, get your snorkeling knocked out of the way, and you can spend the rest of the day just splashing around and wading or going up to the bar and having yourself a cold one, because the new bar is open there. It is rebuilt, back open, and some really good drink prices and strong drinks up there. I probably should mention that there are changing stations and showers as well, so if you want to get yourself changed before the beach or get into something dry on the way back to the ship, you can do that there. I just wouldn't drink the water in the bathrooms. Getting back to St. Thomas is just going to be the reverse order of how you got here. So we're going to start by leaving Trunk Bay. We're going to take an open-air taxi from Trunk Bay to Cruise Bay, which is the ferry terminal. There's going to be open-air taxis waiting for you right when you walk off the beach and go into the parking lot. They're on a constant loop, and it's about a 15-minute ride to make your way to the ferry terminal from Trunk Bay. The ferry leaves every hour on the hour from Cruise Bay over to the Red Hook Cruise Terminal. That's from St. John over to St. Thomas. Once you get over to St. Thomas, you'll just take a taxi or a shuttle from the ferry terminal over to Havensight. That's where your cruise ship is docked, or Crown Bay. Just know where you're docked, and they'll take you to the right area. And then, boom, there you go. You're back at the ship. Maybe go buy some jewelry, buy some electronics, some duty-free stuff, grab yourself a cocktail, and then get back on the ship for sail away. It's just it's a really cool experience. In closing here, I want to offer you a couple of tips. So if you're looking to take some great photos, both of St. Thomas and St. John, on the ferry ride back and forth, make sure you sit at the top, but just realize it does get hot up there, so bring plenty of sunscreen. Carry cash on the island. The US dollar is accepted everywhere. Consider arriving to the ferry terminal about 20 to 30 minutes prior to departure. That's each way, because a lot of students go back and forth on the ferry, so you want to make sure you have a seat. If there are a lot of cruise ships in port, give yourself some extra time going back and forth. There is a ferry now from Charlotte Amalie. That's where the cruise ship actually docks to Cruise Bay, but it takes about 45 minutes to get there. It only runs 3 times per day, so you'll have much more flexibility if you're leaving from Red Hook, because they have those hourly departures. Let's see, what else? Oh, get to the beach early. When the cruise ship guests arrive at the beach, it gets very crowded. So let's just say you're on the 9 a.m. ferry to St. John. You'll have the beach for a good 2 hours or so before the cruise ship excursion starts showing up. And it's a lot nicer before they get there. And then returning to the ship, give yourself about 2 hours of wiggle room before the ship leaves. So if your ship leaves at 4:30, be on the 2 o'clock ferry back to St. Thomas. Just don't risk being left behind. It's a long flight home. Okay, so the cost breakdown, if you're doing it yourself, it's around $48 per person. If you're going through the cruise line, it's around $75 per person. If you're comfortable with going out on your own, I would highly suggest heading over to Trunk Bay yourself. If you like to play it safe or maybe directionally challenged, you're better off just doing the cruise line excursion. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you like this video and you want to see more content, subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. My name is Doug Parker. I'm the host of Cruise Radio and the Cruise Radio Daily News Briefs. You can find both of those where you listen to your favorite podcast. Just type in Cruise Radio or Cruise Radio News. Now you tell me, have you been to St. John and went over to Trunk Bay on your own? Did you find it easy? Let me know in the comments below, or if you have any tips or suggestions for any fellow cruisers, we'd love to get those as well. Again, thank you so much for watching.